Spurs back in Europe's Premier competition, but will it throw up more questions than answers? This is your e-Spurs podcast, Extra Time. Hi guys, welcome to the very first Extra Time of the new season. This is your e-Spurs podcast, a little bit on the side where we answer back. This week on Extra Time, we'll be getting your thoughts on our big talking point of the week, which this week was, will Spurs be able to deal with the balance between Champions League and Premier League football better than we did Europa League and the Premier League over the last decade or so? As you know, Spurs have been competing in the Europa League throughout the last 10 years or so on a regular basis. But there's been a big debate, isn't there, as to whether or not we deal well enough with that balance between Premier League football, Thursday night football, and then going to a Sunday game in the Premier League, and the rotation that comes with that. So we got, as always, your guys' thoughts on the subject this week, and you've been brilliant in getting your responses back to us, and we'll get the e-Spurs team's thoughts on that in just a moment. Before we do that, don't forget you can follow us on Twitter at @e_Spurs, have your say on there, and at Instagram, same Twitter handle, and Facebook is e-Spurs page, all one word. Give the e-Spurs page a like on there and follow our updates throughout the week. So let's get the team's thoughts on the big talking point for this first e-Spurs podcast Extra Time of the week. Let's go to Ian first up. Ian, your thoughts on the balance between Premier League and Champions League. In your opinion, how has that been dealt with over the last 10 years? Has it been dealt with well?
I don't recall it being a problem when we were in the Champions League when we were in 2010. I'm racking my brain to go back to that to see how we performed after our Champions League games. A lot depends on who we get in the group stages, but I think, you know, in the past we have struggled, but last year I think we seemed to do a little bit better after the commitments were elsewhere with regarding, trying to stick with Leicester at the top. So I think in general, I think we've struggled, but the last season, the last two seasons, and especially when Potter's been there, it's been slightly better. So that's I think that's what I would say with regard to that question.
Yeah, and I think the one result it really sort of stands out in my mind, the quarter-final against Fiorentina, great chance to progress in the Europa League. Of course, we had the Carling Cup final, Capital One Cup final a few days later, and there was lots of questions about which sort of team Potts would pick. He went with a very weak team in the Europa League when we had a great chance in that competition. Of course, ended up with nothing after the Chelsea game in the cup final, and of course last season when we again played Fiorentina and he again rotated. So there are slight questions over the rotation. Jay, has it been handled correctly in your view?
Well, I think the rotation in terms of Europa League has been fine because it's never been at the top of our priorities, despite a little bit to my disappointment, because I still looked at it as European football. But I mean, we rotated, for instance, the two fullbacks last year, didn't we, in the European games, and we were able to give one or two of the younger players their opportunities. But that's the big difference this year, that there is no chance to give those young players, your Josh Onomers and things, a go in Champions League games. And it was interesting to see, despite the encouraging season that somebody like Trippier had, he still actually only started 5 Premier League games last year for us. And he'll certainly need to do a lot more of Premier League football this year. And when you look at the Champions League, we've got some tough games straight after it. But there's a little batch of fixtures from October onwards where we have Leicester at home, then it's match day 4, then it's Arsenal away, then it's West Ham at home, then it's match day 5, and then it's Chelsea away. And you look at that as a run of 6 fixtures, and then we have Swansea, match day 6, Manchester United away. So you look at that and you think 9 games there and 8 potentially really tough ones, and we're going to have to do a hell of a lot of very clever squad rotation in amongst those games. And perhaps the one thing that I think you perhaps need to do with squad rotation that we haven't learnt, when we've tended to rotate the squad, we make 7 or 8 changes.
Yeah.
And perhaps the key to it is to only make 2 or 3. And so that, some of those players Ali will have to play 3 out of those 4 games, and then you pull him out of the 4th game or something, rather than changing the entire back 4, changing the goalkeeper, changing 2 of your midfield players, changing the striker. It's a question of just flittering in with 2 or 3 at the most.
Could we, Jay, in that case, use, say, the Carling Cup, the Capital One Cup, and the FA Cup as a replacement for the Europa League in terms of putting the youngsters in, do you think?
Well, I think you're certainly going to have to do that with the League Cup this year, because there is no option around the Champions League games. Although my preference actually for some of the younger players, say Winks certainly, Onumar, is to try and get them really good loans. I'd love Bournemouth or someone like that, Eddie Howe, a side that want to play football, to take Onumar or Winks and give them genuine game time in places like that. I think that would be far more beneficial for them than just perhaps playing 2 or 3 Carling Cup games. And of course, you could still have that problem that if you're playing the Capital One Cup and you think, okay, we'll play our youngsters. I mean, last year we pulled Arsenal and it wasn't the best side that we lined up. But, I mean, you could still pull a Manchester City or a Man United or something and get yourself knocked out almost straight away. And you think, now where's the options for those younger players? So for me, I'd sooner use the young players, really get them good loan deals, and the Carling Cup or the Capital One Cup or whatever, might just have to, unfortunately, fall by the wayside to give us that genuine opportunity of Champions League football and still competing in the league.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think we might start to see Spurs take the Capital One Cup the way that the Man United and the Chelsea's take it now that we've got that Champions League football. It almost becomes a little bit of an inconvenience, doesn't it? It's sad to say, because it's a great trophy when you win it, as we've found out over the last 10 years or so. But the priority now has to be Champions League, doesn't it? So it'd be interesting to see how he rotates. Rick, in terms of the moving forward to next season, Champions League and Premier League, have we now, do you think, got a sufficiently strong enough squad to be able to rotate?
I think we do. Again, I was very hesitant in making too many changes to that first 11, to the actual squad itself, because of how good the squad was in general and how the players had that kind of real spirit between them. So I was very much of the opinion that we had to improve the squad, but not to a point of bringing in wholesale changes. For the moment, I mean, I'd still like to have another real central attacking midfielder come in as a kind of, in terms of Eriksen, he can't play every single game for us, so it'd be nice to have that kind of alternative there. But we wanted a striker. We've got another striker. We wanted an extra midfielder. Obviously, in the case of an injury to Dyer, we've most certainly got that in Wanyama. So definitely we've improved the squad. I'd still like to see a couple more players, but I don't think we can argue about the business being done. We got the players in early, which is normally what doesn't tend to happen at Spurs. So definitely Potter's obviously had some kind of involvement in getting those players in nice and early, and it seems that the players coming in now, most importantly, are the ones that Pochettino wants. They're not just being picked for him, so we have to look at that as a positive, because Levy hasn't always been of that approach. It does seem the manager's way, and that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back to the last time we had Champions League football and the transfers we bought in that summer, I mean, although we bought in more that summer, I think the quality has been better this summer, certainly preparing the squad for the Champions League, isn't it?
I definitely agree. I think the only thing we're missing, Andy, which I know we had a joke in the summer about Mario Götze, and I know a lot of us obviously were tongue-in-cheek saying it'd be great if he come to Spurs. I think, in all honesty, I don't think we genuinely believed that we were going to get the deal over the line. But it would still be nice, like we got the Van der Vaart signing, to get a real marquee player that everybody knows. And I've said it quite often that, for me, Juan Mata, I know that may be an unrealistic signing, but he came off today for United. They subbed him on and then subbed him off. I think for us, I know he's a luxury player, but I really do think a player like Mata has got such great ability. I keep saying a luxury player, but when you've got players like Ali and Dyer in the side that are happy to chase and win back the ball, you don't need 11 men chasing the ball back. You do have that option to have a luxury player like we had with Van der Vaart, if people will remember. He didn't chase the ball back, but the quality he had in front of goal, you could save him for chasing the ball back because of what he could do, up the pitch. So for me personally, if there was an opportunity to bring in a player like Mata, his class, I think we should still go for it. We know there's money there, So although we're trying to save for a stadium, if a marquee player is out there, becomes available, for me that would really complement the squad, because going into that Champions League, it's going to be very, very tough, and we still want to try and maintain a battle on all four fronts. For me, the Cups are as important as the league. This season, should I say, I really want us to go for the Cups. I think we've stressed on here so many times that we haven't seen, Spurs win a trophy now for such a long time. We want to see some kind of reward for the performances and the squad that we've got. So really this season, it has to be about going for that silverware. It really has to be.
Yeah, it's, just thinking as you were talking there, Rick, about this marquee player that's been mentioned a few times. A lot of people will say we don't need them. A lot of people will say we maybe do. It'd be nice to bring that type of player in for the extra quality. And if you think about the top teams out there, if you take marquee players out of the title winning side, is hard work alone, is it enough? We've got lots and lots in our squad that work hard and chase back for the ball. But do you need, as you say, one marquee player in there that might not chase back for the ball? You got 10 around him that do, but he can be the one that scores a goal from nothing. He can be the one that comes on in the 59th minute and completely turns the game on its head. It's interesting. It's certainly an interesting debate, and there are two schools of thought on it. Having said that, Poch's system seems to be working fine at the moment. So a lot will say if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it's a great talking point. Ian, let's get some views, shall we, from the followers who have been tweeting their views to us this week. What have you got for us on the social media, mate?
I've got Nigel Courtnage in Courtnage, out of EL, which UEFA gives no respect to at all. Also, 2 new boys needed, one at least with lots of Champions League experience. #positivity.
Yeah, so Nigel's feeling optimistic there, which I think is a fair reflection of what many Spurs fans are thinking. Jay, what have you got on the social media?
Right, we got our regular friend Harry Charalambus at Hasspur92. I don't think we've bought enough and well enough to cope. We have some really tough games after the Champions League games. And we've got Gobinda, which is at GilGK_Singh. All depends on the drawer. The intensity of Champions League games is high. Our squad has depth and talent, but we must take our chances. #fine margins.
Yeah, and
I think, that's going to be a key thing in those Champions League games. We said it last year. Are we clinical enough to take a high percentage of our chances? And certainly I think in the Champions League games that we will play, and I think Harry's right, we will have a tough game because it looks like we'll be in pot 3. So we'll certainly get a big league champion in the group. And, the nightmare would be for, say, Juventus and Atletico Madrid or someone like that in our group, to really experience tough competitors that, they're the types of sides that you won't have a game where you create 7 or 8 chances against them. So you've definitely got to be clinical when we play those games, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about the whole Wembley thing, Jay? Do you see it being a help or a hindrance?
Well, I think, we were debating it, weren't we, at the end of last season. I think that the encouraging sign is the ticket sales have been excellent, and it looks like we'll have, now we know that we'll have a full Wembley, whereas I think last year we were looking at it and thinking we perhaps only have half the stadium. Yeah. But the full stadium is good, and I think some credit must go to Daniel Levy there, because the ticket prices were exceptional, weren't they? I mean, from what, £70 for 3 games to 150. Which means, I think, your prime seat at Wembley will be cheaper to watch the 3 Champions League games than it will be to watch Hull, Bournemouth and not Aston Villa, but, Hull, Bournemouth and Middlesbrough in the Premier League at White Hart Lane. Yeah. And I think, now we've seen that corner of White Hart Lane removed, I think we probably will think, we probably are now better to play them at Wembley, particularly with a full house. But, we can't wait for the draw, can we? That draw is August the 25th, and I think that's when the excitement will really get going, when we see the fixtures come out of who we've got and when we've got them.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to be back, isn't it? And after what happened a couple of years ago with Chelsea taking that place off us, you kind of, as a typical Spurs fan, you think, it's not going to happen again. You're not going to get back those memories from 2010. Great nights, weren't they? 2010. So certainly exciting, isn't it? Great to be back in the Premier competition. The question is, Rick, can we handle it? Can we deal with Champions League and Premier League football. There's been lots of debate that I've seen on social media saying that Pochettino did the right thing last season in terms of prioritising the Premier League over Europa League and playing in many of the Europa League games, not just the group stage games, but also the knockout games, playing fairly weak sides and blooding the youngsters in those competitions. What have the followers on social media said about that balance?
Okay, let's go to the hits and let's find out. So we've got Callum at Callum Bradker, who says, let's say we have West Brom on the Saturday at White Hart Lane, but Bayern on the Tuesday. Do we have some of the second string against West Bromwich Albion? In answer to that question very, very quickly, what I want to say is that our squad depth now, you have to say the team, when we say about second string, we're not going to change the 11 from the Tuesday through to the Saturday, are we? I just can't see that happening.
No.
But with the additional players we've got now, in the terms of Janssen and in terms of Wanyama, and you look at the fact that we've now got Trippier, we've got Davis, we've got Cameron Carter-Vickers coming through. If you think, really, we're not changing a huge amount of players. And again, you've got to say realistically, that the players that we're bringing in, if we see ourselves as a top 4 club, then we should have enough in our locker to be able to get over the line against the West Brom side. We have to think that. Otherwise, we might as well play for the draw from the start.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? We have to think in our minds that we've got enough to get it over the line. So that's my take on that. And then finally, we've got another comment here. We've got Jerry at Gary Jacks, who says, Janssen is going to be a helping hand. Kane got tired last season at the end. We have a young squad, so they're a year older in terms of fitness. And yeah, you have to say, spot on.
Some really good points. And it's about also, isn't it, Jay, being realistic, I think, in terms of the Champions League, we're not going to win it. And the Premier League, although we finished third last season, I think most will say that was pretty much unexpected if you look back to our predictions at the start of last season. So I think as Spurs fans, we need to be realistic, don't we, in terms of how much we expect again from the team this season.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's always the thing, isn't it? Getting the expectations right. I think much will depend on the draw. I think if you drew Bayern or Juve or someone like that in the top spot, and then you also pick off Atletico Madrid or Dortmund or something from the second pot, then you can kind of feel right. We're going to be right up against it. And then you've got to say it's going to be a hell of a battle to just get through the group. That's not to say we can't do it, but it'll be a real test for us. Of course, the worst thing that will end up is we certainly don't want to finish third, do we? Because if we're going to miss out if we're going to get knocked out of it, I certainly don't want to end up then getting caught in the Europa League again straight after Christmas with all the so-called problems that brings if we are going to be chasing a top 4 place after Christmas. So, let's just see. It's really hard to work it out until that draw comes through. Hopefully it'll be kind to us. You kind of want a couple of big teams though, don't you? I think you'd be disappointed if you ended up with Cluj and people like that in the Champions League group with you. So I think you want, it'd be great to have a Real Madrid or someone like that in the group to have one of those really big nights. But we do want a group that gives us, you look at and think, there's a hell of a good chance to go straight through to the knockout round.
Absolutely. I don't know if Mykon's still playing. I'll have to check that one, see if we can get a game against Mykon next season. Fantastic.
Well, I certainly won't mind if it's into Milan again after Friday or after Friday's game.
Bring it on, absolutely.
I have to say very quickly, lads, the amount of tickets that we've sold, I know obviously people say there's no surprises, it's Spurs, but for them to sell out so quickly in such a short amount of time in terms of what they've sold so far, you have to say it just shows how well supported we are and how much we've craved for Champions League football, and let's hope we can go as far as we can in the competition. And I really do hope that, I say, Poch can kind of balance it on both fronts, because it will be so special to see us go really far in this competition. You've just seen already the amount of tickets that we've sold in such a short amount of time. It's going to be so special those nights. I cannot wait.
Just goes to show, doesn't it, what a real big club's all about. And as you say, Rick, we don't even know the opponents we're playing against yet, and yet we've managed to sell out the biggest stadium in the UK. So fantastic job by all concerned, and Levy for setting the ticket prices so low. Spurs for choosing Wembley, which I think most of us will now recognise is the best option. And let's hope some great nights great nights at the Champions League at the new Wembley. I also like the fact that they sold all 3 tickets as a package. I think that worked quite well for most, and you've still got season ticket holders who want to attend the odd game who can do so. I think it's been a great success all round so far, and long may it continue. Let's hope it continues into the competition itself. Fantastic stuff. And that is your e-Spurs podcast Extra Time, our first of the season. Don't forget to check this podcast out each and every Thursday. We'll be putting the talking points of the week out to you guys, who will then feed back to us for the Extra Time podcast every week. Don't forget to catch the regular podcast on Monday, and we'll be back after the Everton game. Let's hope for a cracking first win of the season against Everton up at Goodison on Saturday. On behalf of Ricky, Ian and Jason, have a great week, guys. As always, come on you Spurs.